She thought he was just a beggar, until 4 lawyers showed up looking for him. Chloe Miller always had a soft heart for people in need, even though she earned little as a nursing student in a coastal town called Mystic. On that cold January morning, she didn't hesitate to offer her breakfast to the man with a salt and pepper beard, who was warming himself with an old blanket on the sidewalk in front of the college. The man accepted the coffee with trembling hands, mumbling disjointed words about important meetings and papers he urgently needed to sign. Chloe thought it was strange, but assumed it was just the mental confusion common in people who had lived on the streets for a long time. "Thank you, young lady," he said in a hoarse but polite voice. "You have a kind heart." Chloe smiled and said goodbye, but something about that man intrigued her. He didn't seem to have the typical behavior of someone living on the streets. His words, even if confused, had a refined vocabulary, and there was something in his eyes, a deep sadness that went beyond homelessness. The next day, Chloe returned to the same spot with a sandwich and hot coffee. The man was there, in the same corner, staring intently at the street activity. "You came back?" he said with a weak smile. "Brought coffee again," Chloe replied, sitting down next to him on the sidewalk. "What's your name?" The man hesitated for a moment, as if the question was difficult to answer. Arthur Harrington," he finally said, but Chloe noticed the uncertainty in his voice. They talked for a few minutes. Arthur spoke about the weather, about how the city had changed, but always with vague comments about "in the old days" and "when I had responsibilities." Chloe didn't press, respecting his pace. During the following week, Chloe established a routine. Every day before class, she would stop to talk with Arthur and bring him something to eat. Her college friends thought it was strange, but she didn't mind. "Chloe, you have to be careful," warned her friend Brooke. "You don't know that man's story. He could be dangerous." "He's harmless, Brooke. He's just going through a hard time," Chloe replied, defending Arthur. On the Friday of that week, everything changed completely. Chloe was approaching the spot where she always found Arthur when she saw a black car parked on the street. 4 men in dark suits were talking outside the vehicle, pointing in different directions. She slowed her pace, trying to listen to the conversation. "Are you sure he was seen here?" asked one of the men, the tallest one. "Absolutely. The description matches perfectly. Man approximately 65 years old, salt and pepper beard, simple clothes," replied another, consulting a paper. "We need to find him today. The situation is becoming unsustainable," said the third man nervously. "The family is putting on pressure. If we don't bring him back soon, they'll take more drastic measures," added the fourth. Chloe felt her heart race. Were they talking about Arthur? She looked toward the spot where he usually was and saw him huddled behind a tree, clearly trying to hide. The men spread out through the area, showing a photo to people passing by. Chloe quickly went to Arthur. "Arthur, what's going on? Who are those men?" she whispered. "They found me," Arthur replied, his eyes full of fear. "I knew this would happen." "But who are they?" "Lawyers," Arthur said, his voice trembling. "They work for people who want to harm me." Chloe didn't fully understand, but she saw the terror in Arthur's eyes. Without hesitation, she helped him up. "Come with me. I know a place where you can hide." They discreetly slipped away through the back of the college grounds, avoiding the men in suits. Chloe took Arthur to a small cafe where her aunt worked, on the outskirts of town. "Aunt Rose, I need a favor," Chloe asked, briefly explaining the situation. Rose Miller, a 60-year-old woman with a heart even bigger than her niece's, didn't hesitate to help. "You can stay in the little back room until things calm down," she said to Arthur. That night, Chloe couldn't sleep. The lawyer's words echoed in her mind. "The family is pressuring. More drastic measures." What did that mean? On Saturday morning, she went back to the cafe to talk to Arthur. She found him calmer, but still visibly shaken. "Arthur, you need to tell me the truth," Chloe said, sitting across from him. "Who are you really?" Arthur sighed deeply, as if carrying an immense weight on his shoulders. My real name is Arthur Harrington. I owned a construction company, a big company." Chloe's eyes widened. That would explain the comments about meetings and important papers. "What happened? Why are you living on the streets?" It's hard to explain. Arthur ran his hand through his greying beard. After my wife died a year ago, everything changed. I couldn't anymore. I couldn't think straight. The doctor said it was depression, but it was more than that. He stopped, struggling to find the right words. My wife's family, no, my in-laws, they started questioning my decisions, said I wasn't fit to run the company, wanted me to sign over power of attorney transfers. And you didn't want to? Chloe asked. Something inside me said not to trust them, especially my daughter-in-law, Tiffany. She never liked me, always thought my wife had married beneath her. Chloe began to understand the complexity of the situation. So you ran away? Not exactly ran away, Arthur sighed. I felt like I was losing my mind. I couldn't remember simple things, mixed up dates, names. I thought maybe they were right, that I really wasn't well. But Arthur, one night I heard Tiffany on the phone. She was talking about having me forcibly committed, about getting a medical report that proved my mental incapacity, said that in 6 months I'd be out of the way, and they could do whatever they wanted with the estate. Chloe felt a chill down her spine. Human greed always shocked her. That's when I decided to leave home. I took a little money, some old clothes, and came here. I thought in this small town no one would recognize me. How long have you been here? 3 months, Arthur answered. The worst 3 months of my life, but also the most enlightening. Away from all that pressure, my mind started to get clearer. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Chloe absorbed everything Arthur had told her. The story made sense, but raised many questions. Arthur, you said your mind got clearer. Do you still have those memory problems? Yes, I do. Some days are worse than others, he admitted. But I realized it got much worse when I was under stress. In that house with Tiffany and her kids constantly pressuring me, I could barely think. And now I can think better. I remember more things. It's as if the peace, even living on the streets, gave me back some of my clarity. Chloe reflected on this. As a nursing student, she knew stress could worsen cognitive problems, especially in people who were already predisposed. Arthur, are you sure those men were lawyers? Absolutely. I recognized one of them. It's Mr. Sterling. He's worked for my wife's family for years. The other 3, I don't know who they are, but they must be paid by Tiffany. What do they want with you? Arthur hesitated, as if deciding how much to tell. They want to take me back, put me in a place where they can control my every move. And then, his voice faltered. And then what? And then they'll get what they want. They'll have me officially declared incompetent and take control of everything I've built over a lifetime. Chloe felt a wave of indignation. How could people be so cruel to someone who was already suffering? We won't let that happen, she said, determined. Chloe, you are very young and kind, but you don't understand what we're up against. These people have money, power, influence. They can do whatever they want. Maybe, but they don't have the truth on their side. Arthur smiled for the first time since Chloe had met him, a sad but genuine smile. You remind me of my daughter. You have a daughter? The smile vanished from Arthur's face. I did. She died in a car accident 5 years ago. That's why my wife and I became so close in recent years. We were everything to each other. Chloe felt her heart tighten. This man had lost practically everything he loved in life. I'm so sorry, Arthur. That's why when my wife died too, I couldn't anymore. I couldn't go on being the same. It was like I'd lost my reason for living. And your wife's children, aren't they your children too? No, my wife was already a widow when we met. Tiffany and Derek are her first husband's children. I raised them as my own, gave them an education, opportunities, love. His voice filled with bitterness. But to them I was always just the rich stepfather. The story was becoming sadder and sadder. Chloe began to understand the loneliness and betrayal Arthur must have been feeling. They were waiting for my wife's death to deliver the final blow, Arthur continued. They thought I'd be easy to manipulate in my grief. But you were smarter. I don't know if I was smart or just lucky. Something warned me not to trust them. At that moment, Aunt Rose entered the little room with a tray of coffee and bread. "Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you should know," she said, worried. "Two men in suits were here a little while ago, asking about an elderly gentleman. They said it was an urgent family matter." Arthur paled. "They're searching everywhere," he murmured. "What did you tell them?" Chloe asked her aunt. "That I hadn't seen anyone matching that description, but they seemed suspicious. They said they'd be back." Chloe felt they needed a better plan. They couldn't keep hiding Arthur indefinitely. "Arthur, is there any way to prove you're of sound mind? A doctor who can attest to it?" "Dr. Whitaker, my doctor for over 20 years. But I'm sure Tiffany has already been to him, trying to convince him otherwise." "We have to try," Chloe insisted. "We can't just keep hiding. We need to act." "Chloe is right," Rose agreed. "Running away doesn't solve the problem. It only delays it." Arthur was silent for a long moment, considering the options. "There is one thing," he finally said. "One thing they don't know I did." "What?" "Before I left home, when I realized things were getting dangerous, I made a new will. A will they will never be able to overturn." Chloe felt a spark of hope. "Where is this will?" "Hidden in a place only I know, a place my wife loved, and that means a lot to me." "Why is that important?" "Because in this will, I make it clear that I am of sound mind. I also name trusted people to manage the assets, should I have health problems in the future. And these trusted people aren't Tiffany and Derek." Arthur shook his head. "Not a chance. They are honest people who have worked with me for years, people who respect my wife and our daughter." Chloe began to see a light at the end of the tunnel. "So if we can recover this will, then they won't be able to do anything against me. The document proves my mental sanity on the date it was made, which was only 4 months ago." "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I'm afraid," Arthur admitted. "Afraid that they'll find out and destroy the will before we can use it. And also because I can't remember exactly where I hid it." Chloe felt her heart sink a little. "What do you mean you can't remember?" "I remember it was in a place special to my wife, but my memory isn't good for specific details. I know it was somewhere she frequented. That was important to her." "What places did your wife used to frequent?" Arthur ran his hand through his hair, concentrating. "The church, the club where she played cards with her friends, the cemetery where our daughter is buried, the public library where she did volunteer work." "That's several places," Chloe observed. "Yeah, and I'm not sure which one it was. I just remember thinking, here she will protect me, when I hid it." Rose, who had listened to the whole conversation, made a suggestion. "Why don't you go to all those places? Maybe when Arthur sees the right spot, he'll remember." "It's dangerous," Chloe replied. "If the lawyers see us, then we'll be careful," Rose insisted. "It's better than staying here waiting for them to find us." Arthur perked up at the idea. "Rose is right, I can't hide forever. And the more time that passes, the harder it will be for me to remember where the will is." Chloe weighed the pros and cons. It was truly risky, but it was also the only chance they had to resolve the situation definitively. "All right," she agreed, "but let's do this smartly. First, we need to find out where the lawyers are now." "How are we going to do that?" Chloe had an idea. "I'll go back to the college. If they're still around there looking, I'll find out. If they're not, it might be safe to start the search." "And if they approach you?" "I'll pretend I don't know anything. I'm just a student who saw an elderly man a few times on the street." Arthur looked worried. "Chloe, you've already done so much for me. I don't want you to put yourself at risk." "Arthur, I'm already involved. And I'm not going to abandon you now." Rose smiled at her niece. "She inherited that stubbornness from her mother," she said to Arthur. "When she decides to help someone, nothing can stop her." An hour later, Chloe returned from her reconnaissance. The lawyers were no longer in the college area, but she had obtained worrying information. "They were at your building, Arthur," she reported. "They talked to several local shopkeepers, showed photos, offered a reward for information." "A reward?" Arthur was alarmed. $500 for anyone who gave information about your whereabouts. "That's a lot of money for most people here," Rose observed. "Exactly. It means they are desperate to find you," Chloe concluded. "Or that they have a lot of money to spend," Arthur added grimly. Either way, we have to act fast, Chloe decided. Where would you like to start looking? Arthur thought for a moment. The church. My wife went to Mass every Sunday for over 30 years. If I hid the will there, it would be in the confessional or near the altar of Our Lady, which was her devotion. Let's go then. St. Jude's Church was in the town centre, a 15-minute walk from Rose's cafe. They left at different times. First Chloe, then Arthur in clothes borrowed from Rose to change his appearance. The church was practically empty on the Sunday afternoon. Only a few elderly ladies praying the rosary and a young sacristan organising the altar. Chloe entered first and did a discreet check. No sign of the lawyers. 5 minutes later, Arthur entered, wearing an old baseball cap and sunglasses. They met near the altar of Our Lady. I remember coming here the day after my wife's funeral, Arthur whispered. I was very shaken. I brought some important documents with me because I didn't want to leave them at home with Tiffany snooping through my things. And you hid the will here? Arthur looked around, trying to remember. Maybe... I don't know. It's not giving me the feeling of certainty I was hoping for. They searched discreetly behind the altar, in the confessional, in the pews where Arthur's wife used to sit. Nothing. Are you sure it was here? Chloe asked after a half-hour of fruitless searching. I'm not sure of anything, Arthur replied, frustrated. My head was a mess back then. Let's try the next place on the list. The municipal cemetery was on the outskirts of town. It was a large, well-kept place, with many old trees providing shade among the graves. Arthur guided Chloe to a more secluded area where his daughter's grave was. Here is my Lily, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. It was a simple but well-maintained grave, with fresh flowers and a photo of the smiling young woman. She was beautiful, Chloe commented. She was just like her mother, good, generous, always concerned about others. Arthur stood in silence for a few minutes, looking at his daughter's photo. Then he began searching around the grave. I came here every week after my wife died, he explained. It was the only place where I felt close to both of them. They searched carefully, checking if anything was hidden behind the headstone, buried near the grave or in any of the flower pots. Nothing here either, Arthur concluded, discouraged. Don't give up yet. We have other places to check. The public library was next on the list. An old, charming building filled with many books and a special section for rare works. The librarian, Mrs. Gable, recognized Arthur immediately. Mr. Arthur, how I've missed you. How are you? We haven't seen you here since... She stopped, realizing she had touched on a delicate subject. Hi, Gable, I'm still recovering, Arthur replied. Your wife is sorely missed here. She organized the children's activities, helped with cataloguing the new books. I know. She loved this place. Can I help you with anything? Chloe took the lead. We're looking for some documents that Mr. Arthur may have left here a few months ago, important papers he kept with his wife's things. Gable thought for a moment. I remember that right after Mrs. Eleanor's funeral, you brought some boxes with her belongings. You said you wanted to donate them to the library. Arthur perked up. The boxes? Yes, I remember now. I brought her books, the notebooks, where she noted the activities. The boxes are still in the storage room, Gable informed them. We haven't had time to catalogue everything yet. Can we take a look? Of course, follow me. The library's storage room was a small room at the back of the building, full of shelves with boxes and books awaiting cataloguing. Gable pointed to 3 boxes on a low shelf. There are Mrs. Eleanor's things. Arthur approached the boxes with emotion. They were the last physical traces of his wife's presence in the world. In the first box they found literature and religious books. In the second, notebooks with notes about the library's activities and letters from children, thanking her for the stories she told. In the third box, at the bottom, among the last books, Arthur found a sealed envelope with his own name handwritten on it. This is it, he said, his voice trembling. It's my will. Chloe felt a wave of relief and hope. Are you sure? Arthur opened the envelope carefully. Inside were several legal papers and a handwritten letter. Here it is, he showed the first page. The last will and testament of Mr. Arthur Harrington, made in March of this year. And the letter? Arthur read it quickly and smiled for the first time in days. It's a letter I wrote to myself, explaining why I made the will and clarifying my mental capacity. Chloe took the letter and read a few passages. I am writing this letter on the 15th of March, fully conscious and in sound mind. Although I am going through a difficult period following the loss of my beloved wife, Eleanor, my reasoning and decision-making abilities remain intact. Arthur, this is perfect, Chloe said, excited. Besides the will, you have a clear statement about your mental capacity. Now they can't hurt me, Arthur breathed a sigh of relief. Gable, who had been observing everything discreetly, approached. Mr. Arthur, if I may make a suggestion, perhaps it would be best to make copies of these documents and keep them in different places. You never know what might happen. Good idea, Chloe agreed. Let's do that right now. They used the public library's copy machine to make several copies of the documents. Chloe kept one copy, Gable took another, and Arthur kept the originals. Now what do we do? Chloe asked. Now I go back home and face this situation head-on, Arthur replied, with a determination Chloe hadn't seen before. Are you sure they're still looking for you? Let them look. Now I have the proof I need. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. When they left the library, it was already getting dark. Arthur seemed like a different man, more confident, more determined. Having the will in his hands had restored his dignity. Chloe, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for me, he said as they walked. No need to thank me. I did what any decent person would do. Unfortunately, not everyone is as decent as you. They were 2 blocks from Rose's cafe when a familiar black car appeared around the corner. Arthur, it's them, Chloe warned. I know, but this time I'm not going to hide. Arthur, don't be reckless. Chloe, trust me. The car stopped beside them. The 4 lawyers quickly got out. Mr. Arthur Harrington, said the tallest one, who seemed to be the leader, we've finally found you. We were very worried about you. Mr. Sterling, Arthur greeted the man coldly. I imagine you were. You need to come back home. Your family is desperate. Tiffany has been crying every day. Chloe almost laughed at the irony. Tiffany crying with worry over Arthur was the most unlikely thing in the world. I'm sure she's very worried indeed, Arthur replied sarcastically. Mr. Arthur, you are not well. You need medical care, supervision. Living on the streets is no place for someone of your age and condition. My condition is just fine, thank you. One of the other lawyers stepped forward. Mr. Arthur, we don't want to force you, but we have authorization from the family to take you back, even against your will. Chloe felt her blood boil. What authorization is that? The young lady shouldn't meddle in family matters, the lawyer replied rudely. The young lady has a name, Chloe retorted, and has every right to meddle when she sees someone being intimidated. Mr. Sterling tried to defuse the situation. Miss, we understand your concern, but Mr. Arthur suffers from serious mental problems. He is not in a condition to make decisions for himself. Is that so? Arthur interjected, pulling the documents from his pocket. Perhaps you'd like to take a look at this before you continue with this conversation, Mr. Sterling picked up the papers and began to read. His expression changed as he read. Where did you get this? I made it, Mr. Sterling, in the full use of my mental faculties, as is clearly stated in the attached declaration. The other 3 lawyers approached to see the documents. This is impossible, murmured one of them. The family said he was completely incapacitated. The family lied, Arthur said calmly. Mr. Sterling was visibly shaken. Mr. Arthur, even if these documents are valid, you still need help. Look at your current situation. My current situation is a direct result of the family's actions. I left home because I discovered they were planning to have me forcibly committed and take my assets. You have no proof of that. Yes, I do. I have a recording of the conversation where Tiffany explained the entire plan to someone over the phone. Chloe looked at Arthur, surprised. He hadn't mentioned any recording before. What recording? Mr. Sterling asked skeptically. Arthur took a small recorder from his pocket. This one. Tiffany's conversation with her lawyer the night before I left home. He pressed play. Tiffany's voice came out clearly from the device. Doctor, we need to speed up the process. The old man is starting to suspect something. I need you to provide the medical reports we discussed. In 6 months I want him committed and all assets transferred to my name. The 4 lawyers fell silent. The recording continued. I don't care if he's lucid or not. I've waited years for this opportunity. Now that Eleanor is dead, nothing will stop me from taking what is rightfully mine. Mr. Sterling was pale. Mr. Arthur, I didn't know. Of course you knew, Mr. Sterling. You've worked for the family for years. You know exactly what kind of person Tiffany is. One of the other lawyers defended himself. We were only hired this week. We were told you were missing and that the family was worried. And you believed it without investigating. They showed us medical reports. Fake reports, Arthur interrupted. The situation had completely reversed. Now it was the lawyers who were on the defensive. Chloe seized the moment. Gentlemen, I think it's time you reconsider whose side you're on in this story. Mr. Sterling, visibly embarrassed, addressed Arthur. Mr. Arthur, I apologize. I was misled about the real situation. If you wish, I can help you take the appropriate legal measures against Tiffany. Why do you want to help me now? Arthur asked suspiciously. Because now I know the truth, and because I've always respected you and your wife. Eleanor was a wonderful person, and I know she would be horrified if she knew what Tiffany is trying to do. The other 3 lawyers exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. We will withdraw from the case, announced one of them. We don't work for dishonest people. Good decision, Chloe commented. After the lawyers left, leaving only Mr. Sterling, Arthur felt more relaxed. Mr. Sterling, I want to sue Tiffany for attempted fraud and conspiracy. I can help you with that, Mr. Arthur. But first, perhaps it's better for you to return home and resume your normal life. My normal life? Arthur laughed bitterly. After all this, I don't know if there is a normal life. Chloe touched his arm gently. Arthur, you will build a new normal life. A life where you don't have to hide or be afraid of anyone. You're right, Chloe. Mr. Sterling said goodbye, promising to prepare all the necessary documentation for the lawsuit against Tiffany. Arthur and Chloe returned to Rose's cafe, where she was waiting anxiously. So? How did it go? Chloe told her aunt everything, who was outraged by the greed of Arthur's family. Pure wickedness, Rose remarked. How can someone do such a thing to a person who is grieving? Unfortunately, Rose, money brings out the worst in people. Arthur replied sadly. But it's over now, Arthur, Chloe said. You can go back to your life. Arthur was quiet for a long moment. Chloe, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Why did you help me? You didn't know me, you didn't know if I was a good person, Chloe thought before answering. My mother always taught me that we should treat people the way we want to be treated. When I saw you on the street, I thought, if it were my father in a situation like that, I would want someone to help him. Arthur was moved by the answer. Your mother raised you very well. She died when I was 15, Chloe told him, but her lessons stayed with me. And your father? He died last year. That's why I know what it's like to be alone in the world. Arthur understood that Chloe had also suffered significant losses in life. Is that why you're studying nursing? Yes, I want to help people who are going through difficult times, like my mother did when she got sick. Rose smiled proudly at her niece. Chloe has always been like that. Since she was little, she would bring stray cats home, help elderly neighbors. That night, Arthur slept peacefully for the first time in months. The next day, he and Chloe went to his house to resolve the situation with Tiffany. The Harrington mansion was in the Highlands part of town, an imposing building with well-kept gardens and classic architecture. When they arrived, they found Tiffany on the porch, talking nervously on the phone. No, doctor, he still hasn't shown up. Yes, keep the documents ready. She stopped talking when she saw Arthur approaching. Hi, Tiffany. Arthur greeted coldly. Arthur? She feigned relief. Thank God you're all right. We were so worried. I can imagine. Tiffany noticed Chloe next to Arthur. Who is this young lady? This is Chloe, the person who saved me from your traps. Tiffany's face hardened. I don't know what you're talking about. Arthur took the recorder from his pocket. "Would you like me to play your conversation with the lawyer for you?" Tiffany paled. "Arthur, you don't understand. I was only trying to protect you." "Protect me?" Arthur laughed. "By trying to have me forcibly committed and steal my assets? It's not stealing, it's taking care of the family estate." "Family?" Arthur's voice changed. "You never considered me family, Tiffany. To you, I was always just the rich man who married your mother." "That's not true." "Yes, it is, and now it's over." "And now? I want you out of my house in 24 hours. Tiffany tried to argue, but Arthur was inflexible. Mr. Sterling arrived with the legal paperwork, and Tiffany was officially evicted from the property. "You'll regret this, Arthur," she said as she left. "Without me, you can't take care of yourself." "We'll see," Arthur replied calmly. In the days that followed, Arthur began to rebuild his life. With the support of Chloe and Mr. Sterling, he regained control of the company and discovered that Tiffany had made several suspicious transactions during his absence. She transferred almost $2 million to her own accounts, Mr. Sterling informed him. "We'll recover every last dollar," Arthur decided. The legal proceedings against Tiffany unfolded quickly. The evidence was irrefutable: the recording, the forged documents, the illegal money transfers. 3 months later, Tiffany was ordered to return all the money and pay compensation for emotional damages. Arthur recovered his assets and his dignity. "Chloe," he said one day when she came to visit him at the mansion, "I want to make you a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" "I want to create a foundation to help underprivileged students in the healthcare field. And I want you to be the first beneficiary." Chloe was moved. "Arthur, I can't accept—" "Yes, you can. You gave me a new chance to live. Let me give you a chance to make your dreams come true." "But—" "No buts. Besides, I need someone I can trust to help me with the foundation, someone who truly understands what it means to help people in need." Chloe accepted the proposal. The Eleanor Harrington Foundation, a name chosen in honor of Joan's wife, was created and became one of the main organizations supporting medical and nursing students in the region. 2 years later, Chloe graduated as a nurse with honors. Arthur was in the audience on graduation day, as proud as if she were his own daughter. "Thank you, Chloe," he said after the ceremony. "Why?" "For showing me that there are still good people in the world, for giving me a reason to keep living." Chloe smiled. "Thank you, Arthur, for teaching me that sometimes a simple act of kindness can completely change a person's life." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Arthur's life had found a new purpose. Besides managing the foundation with Chloe, he began visiting senior centers and hospitals, talking to elderly people who felt abandoned by their families. "It's amazing how a conversation can brighten someone's day," he commented to Chloe after a visit to the senior community center. "Are you speaking from experience?" "Exactly. I remember how good I felt when you stopped to talk to me that first day." The relationship between them had evolved into something very special. It wasn't romantic. The age difference made that impossible, but it was deep and genuine. Arthur had found in Chloe the daughter he lost, and Chloe had found in him the father figure she lacked. "Chloe, can I tell you a secret?" Arthur said one day, while organizing donations at the foundation's headquarters. "Of course. Sometimes I think my wife and my daughter sent you to save me." Chloe smiled. "Do you believe in those things?" "I didn't used to believe, but after everything that happened, it's hard not to think it was more than a coincidence." Maybe it really was. The foundation was growing quickly. In 2 years, it had already helped over 100 students complete their courses in the healthcare field. Every graduation was a celebration for Arthur and Chloe. "Look at how many nurses and doctors were graduating," Chloe observed, flipping through the graduation photo album. "And they're all going to help other people, just like you helped me." "It's a beautiful cycle," Arthur agreed. He had discovered that the best way to honor the memory of his wife and daughter was by helping others get a chance in life. One day, 3 years after his resurrection, Arthur received an unexpected visit. It was Derek, his wife's other adoptive son, Tiffany's brother. "Hi, Arthur," he said, visibly embarrassed. "Derek, what a surprise. Can I come in? I need to talk to you." Chloe, who was present, became alert. She didn't trust any member of that family. "You can speak right here," Arthur replied coldly. "Arthur, I came to apologize for everything that happened with Tiffany, for not defending you." "Did you know what she was planning?" Derek hesitated before answering. "I knew she was pressuring you to sign powers of attorney and transfers, but I didn't know she wanted to have you committed by force." "And why didn't you warn me?" Because I also had an interest in the money," Derek admitted, ashamed. "I thought if Tiffany gained control of the assets, I'd get my share." Arthur shook his head, disappointed. "At least you're being honest now." "Arthur, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I deeply regret what I did. My mother would be horrified if she knew how we treated you." Chloe watched Arthur, trying to understand his reaction. He remained silent for a long moment. "Derek, your mother always told me you were a good person deep down. Maybe she was right. I don't know if I am, but I want to try to be better. What do you want from me?" "I want to work at the foundation, without a salary, as a volunteer. I want to help do the good I should have done when my mother was alive." Arthur and Chloe exchanged a look. It was an unexpected proposal. "Why should I trust you?" Arthur asked. "Because I will prove I've changed, and because I know my mother would have wanted me to do this." Chloe decided to intervene. "Derek, if Arthur decides to give you a chance, it will be one chance only. If you disappoint us—" "I won't disappoint you. I promise." Arthur reflected on the proposal. His first reaction was to reject it, but something made him reconsider. "All right, Derek, but you will start from scratch. You'll do the most basic work, under constant supervision. I'll accept anything. And if I discover any dishonesty, any attempt to take advantage of the situation, you kick me out and never see me again for the rest of your life." Derek kept his word. In the following months, he worked tirelessly at the foundation, always under Chloe's watchful eye. Gradually, he proved he had changed. "He seems sincere," Chloe commented to Arthur after 6 months. "He does seem to be. Maybe people really can change." "Some people." And maybe Derek needed to see what happened to Tiffany to understand where they were going wrong. The foundation continued to grow. Arthur, at 68, had found an energy and a purpose he hadn't felt in years. Chloe, now graduated and working as a nurse at a city hospital, dedicated her afternoons to managing the foundation. One day, while reviewing scholarship applications, Chloe made an observation. "Arthur, did you notice we've already helped over 300 students?" 300, really? "Yes, and some are already graduating and starting to help others." Arthur smiled, satisfied. "Eleanor would be proud." "I'm sure she would." At that moment, Derek entered the room with a proposal. "Arthur, Chloe, I have an idea to expand the foundation." "What idea?" Chloe asked. "What if we created a program to also help vulnerable seniors, like Arthur was when Chloe found him?" The idea touched Arthur deeply. "Are you serious?" "Completely. How many elderly people are going through situations similar to yours? Greedy families, abandonment, loneliness." Chloe became excited by the proposal. "It's an incredible idea, Derek. We could create a support center with legal, psychological, medical assistance." Arthur completed the thought. "Exactly. That was how the Harrington Center for Vulnerable Seniors was born. The center offered not only legal and medical support, but also social activities to combat the loneliness that affected many seniors. The center's opening was an emotional event. Dozens of former foundation scholarship holders came to honor it, along with local authorities and community members. "When I think that 5 years ago I was living on the street without hope," Arthur said in his opening speech, "and now I'm here, helping others who are going through what I went through." The audience was moved. Many knew Arthur and Chloe's story. "All of this started with a simple cup of coffee offered by a kind-hearted young woman," he continued, looking at Chloe. "It's proof that small gestures can have big consequences." After the ceremony, Arthur and Chloe walked through the center, observing the first users, seniors who had come seeking legal help, others who came for the social activities. "Do you remember that first day when you offered me the coffee?" Arthur asked. "How could I forget? You looked so lost." "I was lost in every way." "And now?" Arthur looked around, seeing the movement at the center, hearing the animated conversations of the seniors, watching the young volunteers helping with activities. "Now I feel found. I feel useful again." Chloe smiled. "I'm glad I didn't listen to my friend Brooke when she told me not to get involved with you." "What would you say to her today?" "That sometimes it's worth the risk. That sometimes the person who seems to need help is exactly the one who can teach us the most about life." Years passed. The Eleanor Harrington Foundation and the Harrington Center for Vulnerable Seniors became references in the region. Arthur, now over 70, remained active but had passed the executive administration to Chloe and Derek. On a fall afternoon, 5 years after the center opened, Arthur and Chloe were sitting in the headquarters garden, watching a group of seniors playing dominoes. "Chloe, can I ask you a question I've always wanted to ask?" "Of course." "Have you ever regretted helping me that day?" Chloe looked at him, surprised. "Why would I regret it?" "For all the trouble it caused in your life. The lawyers pursuing you, the problems, the risk." "Arthur, are you serious?" "I am." Chloe took his hand tenderly. "Arthur, you changed my life for the better. You taught me the true meaning of family, of purpose, of making a difference in the world. How could I regret it?" "I changed your life? It was the opposite, Chloe. We changed each other's lives, and the best part is we keep changing other people's lives every day." Arthur smiled, squeezing her hand. "You're right. Eleanor would be proud to see what became of that story about the coffee on the sidewalk." At that moment, a young woman approached them. She was one of the Foundation's newest scholarship recipients, a medical student. "Mr. Arthur, Mrs. Chloe, I wanted to thank you again for the scholarship." "No need to thank us, dear," Chloe replied. "Just study hard and help many people when you graduate." "I will, and one day I want to create a foundation like this to help other students." After the young woman walked away, Arthur commented, "You see, the cycle continues. And it will continue long after we're gone. That is our true legacy, Chloe. Not money or property, but the good we do, and that inspires others to do the same." "A legacy no one can steal," Arthur laughed, remembering Tiffany. "Speaking of which, did you hear she was arrested again?" "I did. She tried to pull the same scam on another wealthy senior, but this time the family was alert. Some people never learn." "Fortunately, others do," Chloe said, looking at Derek, who was organizing an activity with the children from the Foundation's parallel project. "Derek really changed," Arthur observed. "People can change when they truly want to, and when they find purpose." The sun was setting when they decided to leave. On the way, Arthur made a comment that would be etched in Chloe's memory forever. "You know, Chloe, for a long time I thought my life was over when I lost Eleanor and Lily. I thought I had nothing left to live for. And now? Now I understand that life can restart as many times as necessary. You just have to find a reason to start again." "And what was your reason?" "You, Chloe. Your kindness showed me there was still hope. And then, every person we helped became a new reason to continue." Chloe was moved by his words. "Arthur, you were also my reason for many things. For understanding that nursing goes beyond caring for people's bodies. It's caring for the soul, too. That's what you do every day. It's what we do together every day." They arrived at Arthur's house, the same mansion from which Tiffany had been expelled years before. But now the house had a completely different atmosphere. The doors always open to friends and beneficiaries of the Foundation, the garden where charity events were held, the library that Eleanor had set up and that was now used for tutoring underprivileged youth. "Would you like to come in for a coffee?" Arthur invited. "Of course, like old times," Chloe laughed. "Except now it's coffee in a porcelain cup, not in a disposable cup on the sidewalk. The coffee may have changed, but the company remains the same." That night, sitting on the house's porch, they made plans for new Foundation projects. They wanted to create a support home for youth who aged out of orphanages at 18 with nowhere to go. "So many people need help," Chloe commented, "and we have so much to give." Sometimes I think we started too small. Chloe, remember what your mother used to say about treating people the way we'd like to be treated? I remember. It's not about the size of the gesture, it's about its sincerity. You offered me a simple coffee, but you offered it with your heart. That made all the difference. Chloe reflected on those words. It was true. Everything had started with a simple, sincere gesture. Arthur, promise me something. What? Promise that no matter what happens, we will never forget where it all began. That it all started with two strangers who cared about each other. I promise. And do you promise you'll continue the Foundation's work even when I'm no longer here? Arthur, don't talk like that. Chloe, I'm over 70. It's reality. One day, you'll have to run everything alone. Not alone. We'll have the volunteers, Derek, all the young people we're training. You're right. We've created a very large family. A chosen family based on love and common purpose. The best family possible. That night before leaving, Chloe did something she hadn't done in a long time. She gave Arthur a long hug, like a daughter hugging her father. Thank you for everything, Arthur. For teaching me it's worth believing in people. Thank you, Chloe, for teaching me it's never too late to start over. The years kept passing. The Foundation grew even more. The Senior Center became a model for other cities, and the story of Arthur and Chloe inspired many others to practice acts of kindness. Arthur lived to be 78, long enough to see hundreds of young people graduate with the Foundation's help, and dozens of seniors regain their dignity through the support center. On the day of his funeral, the church was packed. Students, former beneficiaries, seniors from the center, volunteers, all came to pay their respects to the man who had transformed a moment of despair into decades of generosity. Chloe, now 35 and the executive director of all the institutions they created, gave the main speech. Arthur Harrington started as a stranger on the sidewalk and ended as a father, grandfather, and example to hundreds of people. He taught me that our story is not defined by the worst moments we go through, but by what we choose to do after them. The Foundation continued to grow under the leadership of Chloe and Derek. 10 years after Arthur's death, they had already helped over 2,000 students and served thousands of seniors. Chloe, now married to a doctor she met through the Foundation's work, had 2 young children. She regularly took them to visit the Senior Center, teaching them from an early age the value of compassion and generosity. "Mommy, why is the lady crying?" asked her 5-year-old daughter, seeing Chloe emotional during a visit to the center. "I'm not crying from sadness, sweetheart. I'm crying from joy." "Why?" "Because I remembered a very beautiful story that happened here." "What story?" Chloe smiled, picked up her daughter, and pointed to the sidewalk where it had all begun, years before. The story of how a coffee changed the world. End of story. This was a fictional story created to touch our hearts. Now tell us what you thought. Do you believe small gestures can truly change lives? Share your thoughts on the story of Arthur and Chloe in the comments. Also tell us where you are watching from and if you have ever witnessed or performed an act of kindness that made a difference. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.